we will talk about the environmental model as a philosophical framework for analyzing everyday aesthetics as environmental communication. Long title.
Yes, it's a long title. Hi everyone, thank you for being here. Well, actually the title is long, but my presentation will be quick and painless.
It doesn't have to be quick because I have an SMS from Maria Sinaci. She will not arrive, she is in Arad and she will not make it. So, you have about 23 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. I will first establish the framework of my presentation. Actually, what I wanted to do here is to discuss of an environmental model within the framework of environmental communication, environmental aesthetics, and everyday aesthetics. One of the first authors to address the issue of environmental aesthetics is Hepburn in 1966. He being committed to maintaining the difference between an aesthetic of the appreciation of nature and an aesthetic of artistic appreciation. But I will just pass through the main concepts of my presentation. For the first one is the environmental communication according to Wikipedia, which is our most reliable source. This concept refers to the study and practice of how individuals, institutions, societies, and cultures craft, receive, understand, distribute, and use messages about the environment and human interactions with the environment. Also, the environmental communication is seen as a symbolic action, which has a double function, both pragmatic and constitutive. Pragmatically, this environmental communication, it helps individuals to accomplish goals and literally do things through communication, and constitutively, it helps to shape people's understanding of environmental issues. Actually, if I may, it creates environmental issues where previously there were not. This environmental communication, for another author, Milstein, in 2009, is both reflecting and constructing or producing human relations with the environment. Milstein discusses the environmental communication as a mediation between humans and nature. This definition starts from the view that representations of nature are, she says, interested, informed by social, economic, and political context and interests. I may add here cultural interests, because it's about the cultural interest that I will speak further. My contribution to the theme is to speak about an environmental model for an aesthetic ecology, and I will follow the thesis, which is not presented, but it is suggested by Timothy Morton's book from 2007, Ecology Without Nature, where he says that the key to, he suggests the fact that the key to understanding aesthetics is not art but nature. Understanding the nature, of the concept of nature, gives us the key to understanding aesthetics, and it's a very interesting take on Martin, because in his book he acknowledges that in the 18th century the notion of nature played a double, duplicitous role in its relation to scientism, which acts both as an essence, because nature, he says, cannot be represented as a substance, it is an abstract principle, it is not an external authority, and also as a substance, where, he says, nature is something real, external, and it exerts authority. The aesthetic ecology approach is a new approach. The phrase aesthetic ecology is new, but the concept behind it is not new. For example, Morton acknowledges it in the 18th century, at least starting from the 18th century on. He discovers a long and respectable philosophical tradition of aesthetic ecology, starting with the Romantics and Hegel. Actually, the idea is that aesthetics will join the concept of nature and the understanding of the concept of nature within the ideological struggles of the 18th century philosophies of counter-enlightenment, which turned against the unequivocal interpretation of science regarding nature. So it is a scientific view versus a non-scientific view on nature. That's the role, the ideological role that aesthetics played in the 18th century, and from the 18th century onwards, as we will see. So we have to acknowledge that nature, the term nature, the concept nature and the concept aesthetic grew together and influenced each other throughout the age of reason. In closely following nature as the counterpart aesthetics, the discipline inherited and became entrenched in this ambivalence of essence-substance, as well as nature. The concept of aesthetics bore the characteristic of an environment. Because as we have already seen, nature is not seen only as an object, but also as an environment. The non-dualistic explanation of nature sees nature as having an organic constitution, or as being actually some sort of, or as being perceived as some sort of environment. So, aesthetics bore the characteristics of the environment, explaining the aesthetic world as being both a world and the particular things of this world. Nevertheless, according to the same Milstein in 2009, environment may reflect, to communication theory, quote, anthropocentric cultural views of and relations with the living earth. Yet, in our reading, environment is informed by cultural influences and changes its meaning. For example, Romanticism and later phenomenology will, quote, situate nature as an integrated and dynamic communicatory participant that has a role in mediating human-nature relations. In other words, phenomenology, as well as Romanticism before, stitched the human back into the fabric of the earth. Actually, environment took a non-dualistic interpretation. End of quote. This view is clearly anti-anthropocentric. I mean, the view the view of the environment as non-dualistic is clearly anthropocentric and anti-hierarchical in respect to humans and nature. Still, about the aesthetic ecology and the environmental model. Aesthetic ecology, which is a new term, is the successor of the environmental language of the Romantics. The environmental language will envision the aesthetic appreciation in terms of a natural experience or of an organic experience. The organic experience means that the individual is within the medium of experience. Is how should I say? Is deep within the experience. In an environmental sense, of course, environmental is a metaphor here. Experience means that, quote, we are embedded in our world. Experience becomes, thus, tantamount to environment. It is, in fact, environmental. Aesthetics will be, thus, just witnessing the fact that our experience with aesthetic objects is part of a natural experience. The meaning of natural will transform, of course, itself historically, where the subject is basically immersed into the object. It is a part of the object, so that this discussion between subject and object will fail to give account of the real nature of the experience. After Romanticism and after the gradual disappearance of the metaphysics of nature, natural experience as well as aesthetic experience, which is its counterpart, will become more and more sensorial, will become more and more perceptual. Yet their explanation will still be based on the environmental model. Dewey and Berland, these are two names I will speak of here. The aesthetics of first Dewey, John Dewey, which is recognized as the philosopher of aesthetic experience in the 20th century. He presents a pragmatist version of the environmental model, drawn from a naturalistic view of nature towards an environmental aesthetics. The basic term in Dewey is experience, and this term is precisely the link between the environmental explanation of nature and the environmental explanation of art. because Dewey uses experience both with relation to nature and with relation to art. Another Deweyan philosopher, which is half Deweyan and half phenomenologist, is Arnold Berlian. He suggests an everyday aesthetics, which is based on the same model, the same environmental model. He names it the ecosystemic model in 2010. Berlian draws his model from pragmatism and phenomenology. As well as Dewey, his basic concept is experience. His understanding of experience is also environmental. Experience is something like a fusion between object and subject, or the other way around. As well as Dewey, he doesn't take the order of coherence for the order of experience. These are his expressions, leaving room for experience, including extractive experience, to be understood as a natural process of aesthesis, of perception. Dewey will also speak of an environmental understanding of social processes in the light of what has been said about experience in general, or about total experience, which is Dewey's idea. We may assume that society may and need to be explained in more natural terms as part of the general environmental picture of reality. Thus, society as well as art is ultimately a human product and therefore explainable in terms of a continuous and living common experience or process. As a social phenomenon, environmentalism is therefore just a natural reaction of humans in respect to their total experience or general medium, social as well as natural. But we have to actually interrupt this discussion about Dewey and Berlian, because we have to ask ourselves, what do we understand when we say nature? What do we understand by the concept of nature? A very interesting account of what a concept of nature will be is Kate Soper's What is Nature, 1995. She actually discovers two senses of, two basic kinds of nature, which developed themselves throughout the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, and the early modern age. First is the cosmological nature, the cosmological concept of nature, where nature is both that with which we are not and which we are within. This idea of cosmological nature, Kate Soper says, will reject man's superiority of nature. The second kind of nature is human nature. It's very interesting, because we are speaking of nature. This is her idea. When we are speaking of nature, we are speaking of two different things, at least. We speak about nature as an external object, and we imply the difference between myself and the external world. But on the other hand, we also use the concept of human nature, which is not the same thing, of course. So the second kind of nature is human nature, which is sometimes looked upon as being essential to man, yet opposed to nature, because human nature means cultural nature of human, and that therefore it is opposed to the first concept of nature as external world. About human nature, there are basically two perspectives: the human nature as anti-nature view, with the human nature as cultural view, and the human nature as nature view, or, she says, the realist view. So she discovers two views on human nature: the culturalist view and the realist view. Or, as she acknowledges, the nature endorsing view and the nature exposing view. The nature endorsing view can be both conservative and progressive. The nature exposing view also can be both conservative and progressive. Conservative when it is culturally determined, and progressive when it criticizes the other view, the nature endorsing view. About romanticism and nature, she says, and I quote, it is an interesting quote, and actually a comprehensive one about romanticism and about what I was trying to say here. And she says, the romantic conception of nature as an essentially innocent and benevolent power has played a key role in the discourse of sexual and social emancipation from Blake and Shelley through the flower power politics of the 60s and much of the ecological argument of our own time. Liberating the nature within or without us has been a constant theme of emancipatory discourse and one might argue some reference to a repressed nature, is a condition of the coherence of any such thought. But we should not forget that irrationalities and repressions to which this nature libertarianism can also lend itself. So, her idea is that Romanticism cherishes a nature-endorsing view of nature. I return to Berland. Our thesis, for example, is that in the case of Berland's explanation of aesthetic experience as, of environmental action as aesthetic experience, is that, for example, our environmental activism may carry aesthetic meanings within its processes as any other situation involving societal relations can. About Berland's concept of aesthetic social situations, you see here the correspondence between aesthetics and social based on the Deweyan concept of experience. Berland will resume the situation left by the lack of consensus in aesthetic theory starting with the 18th century. He says that actually we don't have a concept of social aesthetics because the aesthetic value has had a strong subjective meaning, starting from Kant and the other from other materialist 18th century philosophers. How much time do I have? Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you. About Berland concept, I described here his concept in this table. Actually, in his work from 2005, he explains the aesthetic social situation by reference to the aesthetic situation in general. And you can see here the features that are presented as being the features of an aesthetic situation being transferred to the aesthetic social situation. For example, acceptance, perception, sensuousness, discovery, uniqueness, reciprocity, continuity, engagement, and multiplicity. These are all transferred to the aesthetic social situation. So he says basically that we can view an aesthetic social situation as a form of aesthetic situation. About his examples from the study of from 2005, he describes aesthetic social situations in cases of theater, architecture, film, etiquette, primitive rituals, love, and ceremonies, festivals, celebrations. But my questions come after. Some questions come, and these are my questions. Some questions come from the presentation of Berland's model. And these questions are, for example, is the state of mind associated with Berland's explanation of the aesthetic social situation universal across cultures? Is there some sort of neurological wiring, the same for human to assess the social situation in this manner? Is the aesthetic social situation of Berland explained according to Berland's model not a value that can be learned by some and not a universal one? If multiplicity is a feature of everyday aesthetic social situation, is there no difference between, for example, experience of play and experience of work? Because as we know from sociology and anthropology, work and play have very different meaning. Also a critique of Berland's model, and not just Berland, but also Dewey, we have to take account of a critique of experience. Because as anthropologists know, experience may be different from culture to culture. The term experience, the concept of experience, as the concept of nature, as we have already seen, is different from a culture to another culture and from a historical time to another historical time. Accordingly, experience itself, a sociologist, the sociologist Abrams says in 1986, is a deeply coded word in our own culture. Also, the sociologist Victor Turner in 1986, experience, for example, the term itself is from the Indo-European per, from the Greek perao, which also relates to words, to our words such as pirates, peril, and experience. So the question of Abrams is the following one regarding experience, where when we are in the action of situation and significant experience, is not this act transforming the experience that we are speaking of into something typical, formal and representative? I mean, I'm just speaking about the current language. For example, when we use the term experience, I've had a good experience. What is a good experience? I have a nice experience. What is a nice experience? It is a coded experience. When I said I have a nice experience, I already coded my experience. I said we would have to go to the beach to have beautiful experiences. What is this? I mean, this is a culturally coded experience. When I say this, so this is Abraham's point. Is our concept of experience not already coding the experience we are living and we are talking of as experience? It may be that the qualities such as, he says, actuality, duality of matter, peculiarity, and authenticity, authority are damaging precisely the nature of experience one is looking on extracting these futures from. And he quotes here. Or another question addressed by Abrams: why has the significant experience become so typical? Why is this experience so representatively anecdotic in our own Western culture? Everything is experience. We have to experience everything. If we don't experience everything, we do nothing. So just like this. Of course, as an anthropologist, he decodes the concept of experience in our own culture, and he says that experience in our own culture means individuality, authenticity, novelty, spontaneity, uniqueness, fear of boredom, originality, and more recently, everydayness. Well, speaking about everyday aesthetic experience and everyday experience. Everyday experience is also almost a pleonasm today. When you say everyday experience, you already associate experience with the everyday. Why do you say everyday experience? So it's basically redundant. Other example of culturalized expectation of experience: the search for novelty, the fear of boredom. Experience means to move on or to move up. You have to experience something. That means to move on, to move up. Experience is the authentic thing and not the authoritative thing. When I experience something, I tend to understand experience as being something apart from authority, as being something individual, authentic, etc., etc., etc. So, in summa, our best or big experience may be really just the reporting and not the reality of experience. Wherefrom the double consciousness of experience. We love, for example, unplanned or spontaneous experience, yet we are not prepared for it when it really occurs. Thus, we are likely more observers than participants. Abrams recognizes two kinds of an experience: that arising directly out of the flow of life, and that for which we plan and to which we look forward. For example, our tourist experiences. We plan and we look forward for our tourist experience, for our tourist trips. This openness of experience, which should be the basic meaning of experience, is constantly limited by the self-determination of our daily life. This is why an analysis of experience will ever be a continuous exercise in self-consciousness. Well, I think my time is up.
Our time is up.
Yeah, our time. Thank you very much for your being here. Yeah. Thank you very much.